We're now going on the record at approximately 9:58 a.m. Today's date's June 9th, 2021. This is media unit number 1 of the video recorded interview of a witness for June 9th, 2021, taken by Special Deputy for the New York Attorney's General Office in the matter of independent investigation under New York State Executive Law, Section 63(8). This deposition is being held via Zoom virtual conferencing. My name is Ryan Gallagher. I'm the videographer. The court reporter is Melissa Gilmore. We're both from the firm Veritex Legal Solutions. At this time, all attorneys present will identify themselves for the record.
Hi, I'm Ann Clark. I'm usually at the law firm of Vladeck, Raskin & Clark. I'm appearing today as a special deputy to the First Deputy Attorney General. Ezra?
My name is Ezra Sukor, and I'm also from the law firm of Vladeck, Raskin & Clark.
And I am Marianne Wong from QD Hecker Wong, representing Virginia Limmiatis, the witness today. Alice?
I'm Alice Ryder, also from QD Hecker Wong, on behalf of Ms. Limmiatis.
Good morning. This is June Kim. I just joined with the law firm of Cleary Gottlieb, and like Ms. Clark, acting in my capacity as a special deputy in the New York Attorney General's office.
This time, the court reporter will swear in the witness and we can proceed.
Can I ask you to raise your right hand, please? Ms. Limmiatis, thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Ms. Limmiatis. Thank you very much for coming forward and agreeing to meet with us today. I just have to go over some sort of background stuff before we get started. As we said at the outset, my name is Ann Clark, and I've been appointed a special deputy to the First Deputy Attorney General. The New York Attorney General has appointed 2 law firms, mine, Vladeck, Raskin & Clark, and June Kim's Cleary Gottlieb, Steen & Hamilton, to conduct an independent investigation under New York Executive Law, Section 63(8), into allegations of sexual harassment brought against Governor Andrew Cuomo, as well as the surrounding circumstances. And you are here today pursuant to a subpoena that was issued in connection with that investigation. As you are not somebody who has gone forward publicly, we will do our best to maintain confidentiality. We are conducting a confidential investigation. If we use information supplied by you, there will be a public report at the end of our investigation. But if at the time we're issuing the report, you have still chosen not to step forward publicly, we have the ability to not use your name and to anonymize you so that the public won't know who it is. That being said, while the Attorney General's office does aim to protect complainants who have not chosen to come forward publicly, the state is subject to freedom of information law, and if there's litigation over that, no one can really control the outcome, although the Attorney General's office has generally been successful in protecting that information. We want to let you know that you should be protected from retaliation for participating in this. So if anything happens to you after today that you think is retaliation for you participating in the investigation, you should let your attorneys know, and they will let us know right away, because this is something that the Attorney General's office takes very seriously. Now, I want to note that, as you saw at the outset, this is being video recorded, and also note that you are under oath, which means you must testify truthfully, just as if you were in a court of law sitting before a judge and jury. And your testimony is subject to a penalty of perjury if you're not truthful. At the end, I'll remind you again at the end, if you want to make any brief sworn statement, if there's anything that we didn't cover or anything you want to add, you'll be permitted to make any statement you want at the conclusion. We also have to tell you that although this is a civil investigation, that the Attorney General's office also has criminal enforcement powers. So you have the right to refuse to answer a question if to do so would incriminate you. Failure to answer a question can be held against you in civil proceedings, but not in criminal proceedings. And if you have questions about that during the course of the proceedings, you can speak to your counsel about that. You do have counsel present today. You can consult with them about any sort of privilege issue that may come up, whether it's Fifth Amendment or attorney-client communication. As you see, we have a court reporter who is present in our virtual space here, and she needs to be able to take down everything we're saying to create a clear record. And so that it's clear and that her job is not made more difficult, a few ground rules. One is it's best if we do not speak at the same time. So I will do my very best to make sure you have finished answering before I start talking and asking the next question. And this is not like a normal conversation, but even if you know where I'm headed with my question, let me get the whole question out, because if you start before I'm done, it makes the court reporter's job difficult. In giving a response, even though there's a video, we still have the court reporter taking down a record. So nodding your head or shaking your head or saying, does not create a clear record. So if you do that, I'll ask you to give a verbal response. If you don't know the answer to a question, just let me know. If you don't understand one of my questions, don't struggle or guess. Just let me know that whatever I said wasn't clear to you, and I'll try to rephrase it in a way that makes sense. Now, you are not going to have a chance to get a copy of this transcript to review it, but during the course of the day, if while we're talking you realize that you need to add something or clarify something or change something you said earlier, sometimes when you start talking about a later incident, you remember something about something earlier, feel free to just let us know that you need to add or change something from a prior answer, and we can put that on the record. You shouldn't go too long today, but if at any point you need a break, just let us know. I'd ask that you answer any pending question before we take a break, but otherwise we can take breaks. So Ms. Limmiatis, are you alone in the room that you're in, or are you in a room with anybody else?
I'm alone.
Okay. And Marianne and Alice, are you guys both alone in the rooms you're in?
I will be alone in 1 second, but
Okay.
in any event, no one can hear
Okay.
hear me.
And
Yes,
that's
I'm
going
alone.
Okay. And we just want to confirm that you and your counsel are not permitted to use any technology to create a recording of the proceeding, including screen capturing tools. Is that understood?
That's confirmed on our end.
Yes.
And that we also need to confirm that you and your counsel are not allowed to let anyone else listen in on these proceedings. Is that confirmed?
That's also confirmed, yes.
And we're just going to direct that during the course of the proceedings today, that you not during any breaks or through text messages or anything, give sort of real-time updates to anyone as to what's going on. And we need to tell you that Executive Law Section 63(8), the provision under which we're conducting this investigation, prohibits you and your counsel from telling anyone about what you testify to today and the questions that we ask you. So, you're free if you want to tell people that you participated in this, but not the substance of what we discussed. And if you or your counsel have questions about that later, we can certainly answer any questions. Are you taking any medication that might affect your ability to testify accurately and truthfully today?
No, I'm not.
Is there any other reason why you can't testify accurately and truthfully today?
No.
Have you had any alcohol today?
No.
Could you, for the record, state your name, date of birth, and current home and business addresses?
Yes, my name is Virginia Limmiatis. My birthday is, I live at.
And what's your work address? Have you ever given testimony in any other proceeding before?
No, I have not.
Other than speaking with your counsel, and I don't want to know about that, did you do anything to prepare for testimony today?
No.
Did you speak to anyone other than your counsel in anticipation of your testimony today?
No, I did not.
And we have so few documents that we didn't bother sending a binder, as we've done in some other things. But Ezra, could you put up on the screen this tab 1? And what I'm showing you is a subpoena that was sent to your care of your attorney. Did you see that before?
Yes, I did.
And you understand that, Ezra, you can take that down, that the testimony that we're taking today is pursuant to this subpoena. Is that right?
That's correct.
Just want a little bit of sense of your background. If you could just describe your educational background for us.
Yes, I have both a baccalaureate degree and master's degree from the University of Scranton in international relations and communications, and my master's degree is in American history.
And when did you get your degrees?
Respectively.
And you currently work at.
That's correct.
When did you start it?
In 2010.
And if you could give us an overview of what your employment history was from the time you got your degrees until you joined.
Sure. So basically, I worked in a capacity of communications for various organizations in the Washington, D.C. area that include law firms as well as engineering firms. When I moved to Syracuse in about 2000, I worked for a few years as a consultant, and then I joined the in 2007, I believe, and worked there for about 2 years. And then I worked in the capacity of communications for the, which preceded my joining in 2010.
When you joined, what was your first position?
It's the position that I've held since 2010. I work in strategic communications.
And why don't you explain a little bit to us about what you do in your role in strategic communications?
Sure. So I work on crisis communications. I work in media outreach. I develop holding statements, talking points. I'm considered an asset as an advisor to our executive leadership. So I work on strategic communication that would basically entail looking at opportunities to convey messaging on behalf of the company. So both external facing communications and internal communications. So I do a lot of writing, promoting of the programs that making available to organizations and to customers, and looking at short-term and long-term objectives to make sure that storytelling is conveyed accurately. So I work in capacity as well as a public information officer on behalf of the company during storms and crisis communications. So in general, what I do is both external and internal communications on behalf of the company.
And who do you presently report to?
So presently I report to, she's the.
And as part of your work with, you interact at all with anyone in the Cuomo administration?
No, I do not.
Do you have any, outside of your work at, do you have any connections to Governor Cuomo or his administration?
No, I don't.
Have you ever worked for Andrew Cuomo?
No, I have not.
Have you ever worked for the Cuomo administration?
No, I have not.
And have you ever worked for or with anyone that you understand to be a senior person in his administration?
No.
And have you ever worked for the state of New York?
No, I have not.
Okay, so we understand we're here today because you had an interaction at some point with the governor. When was that event?
It was May 2017.
And what was the event?
It was a celebration and recognition of a formal process to recognize transfer of about 3,000 acres of land at the Salmon River. So formally, the agreement was referred to as the Salmon River Land Transfer. So we were working with the folks in the called the DEC, who manages the Salmon River, to put together a recognition of transfer of these 3,000 acres to the state of New York. So this was the culmination of months and years of work and dedication of many people to ensure that the agreement was signed, sealed, and delivered. And it was basically as a way to recognize the years of collaboration between and the state to ensure that the land transfer was publicly celebrated in the form of this media event at the Salmon River.
And what was your role, if any, in preparing for the event?
So in my capacity working in communications, I worked with members of the DEC to ensure putting together messaging in the form of a press release and putting together a subject matter experts to both attend the event. And if asked, we would be able to put a member of the group of subject matter experts in front of a camera to talk on behalf of to ensure that that messaging was delivered to members of the media.
And DEC, what does that stand for?
The Department of Environmental Conservation.
And who were you working with from DEC on working on the messaging and putting the event together?
I don't recall.
And where was the event held?
It's the Salmon River Fish Hatchery, and I think the name of the town is Altamar, New York, but it's at the Salmon River Fish Hatchery.
Prior to this event, had you ever met the governor?
No.
And putting aside the interaction between you and the governor, what were the sort of planned events for this event?
So the planned event began as, so in my capacity working with my contact at the DEC to put together a press release. And then a few days before the actual press release, I understood through my contact at the DEC that the governor was going to be in the area. And so that the state of New York was actually going to be holding this press event. So was not permitted to actually host the event, but it was then going to become a state of New York announcement at the Salmon River Fish Hatchery. So basically the work that the DEC, my colleague at the DEC and I had put together for this announcement was then taken over by the state and it became their announcement on that day. And so it went from us leading the announcement to us taking a back seat.
And were you told in it once it became sort of a state of New York event, were you told what sort of the schedule or plan was for what was going to happen at the event?
No.
Were you given any role to have during the event? Were you told you're going to either by the state of New York or by?
No, we were basically told that it was a state of New York event, and that we were invited to serve as guests, so we could sit in the audience.
And who else other than you attended the event?
So my colleagues.
Anyone else?
Not that I recall.
And do you recall what you were wearing that day?
Yes, I had my branded T-shirt and a pair of jeans.
And Ezra, could you pull up tab 2 and share that? And this is a something that your lawyer sent to us. Do you recognize this?
I do.
What is this?
That's me wearing my T-shirt.
And is it the exact same T-shirt you were wearing that day, or one similar to it, or something else?
It's the exact same T-shirt.
Okay. And then it has the logo across the top?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You can take that down, Ezra. Did you take any other photos at the event that day?
No. I mean, I took photos of the event, but that's it.
And the photo that we just saw of you in the T-shirt, was that taken at the event, or was that taken at some other point?
That was taken at some other point.
When was that photo taken?
I believe just a few weeks ago.
So you did take some photos at the event?
Yes.
Ezra, why don't you put up tab 3 just so we make sure we identify everything. Is this one of the photos that you took at the event?
Yes,
And it looks like that's the governor seated, is that correct?
that's correct.
And do you know who the other people are to the left of the governor?
Yes, shaking his hand is my colleague, and I'm not familiar with the other two behind.
Okay. Ezra, can you put up tab 4?
Yes, just a sec. I just need to tab over. Let's see.
Okay, is this another photo you took?
Yes,
A lot more people in this photo. Do you recognize any of the people in this photo?
I recognize all. So it looks that he's standing to the right behind the governor.
In the looks like a white or light blue shirt.
Yes,
Do you know any of the other people who are in the photo?
I do not.
Okay, Ezra, you can take that down. So you got to the event. How many people were at the event?
It was a large group of people, as I recall. The governor's, I'll call them media folks, planning and event folks, had put together a really nice event with chairs and a canopy, a stage, as well as a dais where folks went on stage and delivered remarks. So the seating was at capacity, and there were dozens of people standing behind those folks seated behind in a canopy area. So it was very, very well attended.
And were you seated or were you standing in the canopy area or somewhere else?
I was seated at times, but also, taking some photos and chatting with members of the media. So I was kind of on the move, which is typically what I do. And in my role in media relations, that's one of the things that we do is, continue to be a sort of a consensus builder and network as a representative. So I was both seated and walking around in the area.
And did you speak to any of the governor's press or communications people?
I did not.
And there was then some sort of formal program, is that right?
Yes, there was. So several folks did speak, including the governor, talking about various, I'll call it historical facts about the Salmon River, as well as economic development programs and what the state is trying to do, those initiatives to buoy the area. So very, very good, I'll call it collaborative messaging with regard to partnerships from the state and what they're trying to do in terms of environmental conservation. So lots of members of sort of an entourage, if you will, or those subject matter experts from the state and local municipality talking about that partnership with the state and local leadership.
And about how long did the speeches go on for?
I'm going to guess about a half hour, maybe slightly longer.
And once the speeches ended, then what happened?
Once the speeches ended, there were photographs taken, as you can see, with the formal signing of the agreement, the formal land transfer agreement. And then the governor and his entourage moved down to the river's edge.
And what were they doing down at the river's edge?
So there were members of the salmon fish hatchery who had buckets of fish that they were introducing into the river. And so I believe that he grabbed a bucket or was taking fish out of the bucket and then placing them in the river.
And where were you when the governor was putting the salmon into the river?
So I was actually sort of a part of the press corps who followed him from the formal stage area down to the river's edge. And there were a group of us who were kind of lined up in sort of a wedding reception style, I'll call it line, on the side of the river, watching him participate in introducing fish into the river. So there were a group of us, members of the media, who were lined up next to the river.
And about how many people were in this sort of reception line?
I would guess there were probably maybe close to a dozen folks between, you know, I can't be exactly sure, but I would say upwards of about a dozen people.
And were you at one end or the other or somewhere in the middle?
I was in the middle. There were members of the press to my right. I was in the middle, and there were a few to my left.
And after the governor put some salmon in the river, what happened next?
Then he walked up to the sort of reception area, as I call it, receiving line of us members of the media, and he went from the first person up the line, saying hello and shaking folks' hands, exchanging. It looked like you know, just some well wishes, and I was sort of in the middle of that line, looking down at him and looking forward to saying hello and thinking maybe I'll have a chance to thank him for the partnership. So I was in the middle of that line.
And as the governor was making his way down the line before he got to you, did he hug any of the people that he interacted with?
No.
Did he kiss any of them?
No.
Did he touch any of them other than to shake their hand?
Not that I recall.
So when the governor got to you, what happened?
So I extended my hand and I said, Governor, thank you so much for coming to today's event. My name is Virginia Limmiatis. I represent, and we are so thrilled to have you here today and formalize this partnership. So I extended my hand. I said some words of congratulations. And then he walked right up close to me and he put his finger on my shirt, starting with the and went across my chest, my breasts, going from letter to letter to letter, starting with the, and he said, I know you.
And was he using his right hand?
I believe he used his right hand.
And he was using, you know, like using his index finger, or was he using more than one finger? Or?
I think I think as I recall, it went like this.
Okay. And you had two fingers out.
Remember,
You think it was first two fingers?
I believe so.
And you just made a gesture. So he put his fingers on the, and then slid the fingers across
Yeah.
the logo?
Like this, touching each of the letters. Yeah.
So for the written record, it looks like he was like pressing a letter and then sliding his finger over to the next letter and pressing the next letter and doing that throughout words. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And when he got to the end of, what happened next?
Then he looked up at me and he came over to the side of my face, to my cheek, and he whispered in my ear. So his face was right up to my cheek, and he whispered in my ear and he said, I'm going to say that I see a spider on your shoulder.
And when he was whispering in your ear, was his face touching your face?
Yes, it was.
And up until this point, while he was saying, I know you and I'm going to a spider, did you say anything in response to any of those statements by the governor?
I did not. I was in absolute shock.
So after he whispered in your ear that he was going to say there was a spider on your shoulder, what happened next?
I looked down to see both his hand going like this on my shoulder, going like this, trying to push something away. And I looked down to see, is there a spider? I mean, my reaction was just, I was appalled and shocked of what just happened. And I looked down and of course I did not see a spider. And then I looked up at him and he could see that I was in shock. And he just looked up at me and a few seconds later walked to the person to my right.
And when you gestured of him making a gesture like he was brushing off a spider, did you see any spider either on you or on the ground after he made that gesture?
No, I did not.
And you said he said he was going to brush your shoulder. The gesture you made, it looked like it was not at the top of your shoulder, but was more somewhere between your shoulder and your breast.
Yes, so I don't know what this area would be called, but yes, it's midway.
Sort of below your collarbone?
Yes.
And when he moved down to the rest of the line, as he moved to the next person, what, if anything, did you do?
I looked to my left and to my right to see if someone was saying something to him, like, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" To look to see among my colleagues if someone recognized or saw what he just did to me, and apparently, what the best way I can describe it is the expression on the eyes of the folks to my left and to my right. They were just focused on him. So my assumption when I quickly looked to my left and to my right was that people just didn't see what he did. They were focused on his eyes.
And do you recall who was immediately on your left and right?
I don't, but they were members of the media.
And did you see the governor then proceed down the rest of the line?
Yes, I did.
And did he touch anyone on the rest of the line?
Outside of a handshake, I don't know.
And what were you thinking when the governor did this to you?
I was absolutely humiliated. It's very difficult even talking about it. I was absolutely profoundly humiliated and appalled. I was in shock. Very negative feelings is the best way to describe it. And I left that area and I immediately went up to my colleagues and told them what happened.
We'll get to that in 1 second. After the governor went to the end of the line, what did he do?
I believe that group had dispersed, and I don't know where he went after that, but I could see that at some point he was milling about the crowd of folks. But I was with my team, and that's all I remember at this point.
So where was, you said you went to your team, where were they?
They were up towards the stage area.
And when you say your team, was it the 3 people you identified that you recall going?
Yes.
And were they all together when you walked up to them?
Yes, they were.
So what happened when you approached them?
My first recollection was I told them that the governor touched me, and that he was telling me that there was a spider, and made gestures on my shoulder, on my body, on my chest, that there was a spider on my chest, and pretended to remove it. And I believe that at least the folks who were there could recognize that I was very, very disturbed by it. So I did share with these 3 folks what happened.
And when you said you told them that the governor touched them, did you specifically say that he touched your breasts or touched the logo on your t-shirt you were wearing or something along those lines? I
told them that that he touched the logo on my chest. I don't believe I went into detail with regard to my breasts. I was so embarrassed. I mean, how do you tell colleagues what happened? But I did tell them that he touched my t-shirt and the logo, and I told them about the spider.
And do you recall anything that that they said to you when you told them what happened?
I don't recall specifically. I know that my one colleague expressed concern and support for me.
And how long had you known?
Just for a few years. I had worked with him specifically on this project. So I'd worked with him perhaps maybe 6 months on the project. So, so this project specifically about 6 months.
And what about, how long had you worked with them?
So I'd worked with him since joining the company in 2010. And similarly, I became familiar with because of this project.
And after you told them, how much longer did you stay at the event?
Not much longer, maybe 20 minutes after that. So not a considerable amount of time.
And did you have any interactions with the governor once you left the receiving line?
No.
And did you speak to anyone in the governor's entourage? Oops. Did you stabilize that?
I think you may have hit the mute button, Virginia.
Yeah,
Oops. Sorry about this.
that's okay. Okay. Did you speak to anyone from the governor's entourage after you left the receiving line?
No, I did not.
Since that event, have you spoken to about what happened?
No, I have not. No.
Have you spoken to about it since the event?
No, I have not. No.
And was this event in the morning or the afternoon?
It was around noon, so I would say late morning, early afternoon.
And so did you go back to the office after the event?
I did.
And when you got to work, did you tell anyone at work about what had happened?
I told my boss.
And who was your boss at that time? Was it?
Yes.
What did you tell?
I told her the same thing that I told the folks at the salmon fish hatchery. I told her that he touched the logo on my T-shirt and pretended that he was removing a spider off my shoulder.
And what did she say in response, if anything?
She felt terrible. She asked me if I was okay, but she did express concern.
Did she discuss with you whether you wanted to report this in some fashion, either within or just to someone in the governor's office?
Not that I recall.
Did you talk to anyone at that time about the possibility of reporting this either within or to someone in the governor's office?
No, I did not, mainly because I was, there's some trepidation and fear. How do you explain to someone what the governor did in public? Such an egregious act, heinous act. I was very fearful, actually. How does someone believe that this happened to me? So there was some trepidation with regard to people believing me. And so that's mainly why I didn't elevate this any higher.
Other than the people you just described, in or around that time period, did you tell anyone else in your life, colleagues, friends, family?
Yes, I told my sister.
How long after the event did you tell your sister?
It was within a day or two. So in fact, it could have even been on my ride home. But it was within short order that I reached out to my sister.
And was that by telephone?
Yes.
And what did you tell your sister?
I told her the events of the day, and I told her that he touched my breasts.
What, if anything, did your sister say in response?
She was horrified and asked me if I was okay, and mainly concerned for my safety and health. And she wanted to just ensure that I was okay. And as sisters do, they provide a sounding board. And she was just heartbroken for me. Very, very difficult.
And what does your sister do or what was your sister doing for work, if anything, at that time?
I believe my sister at the time was but she's.
Did you tell anyone else in or around that time period?
Yes, I told my ex-husband. I also shared it with my cousin.
When did you tell your ex-husband?
Within a few days, so I would say about a week.
And what did you tell him?
I told him the events of the day and that the governor touched my breasts, and relayed the details of the story about the spider, and just shared with him the details of the day, the act, and my feelings.
What, if anything, did he say in response?
He was in shock. He was absolutely in shock. Again, coming from a space of, are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? But just providing a sounding board. Like my sister and cousin and you know, just absolute disbelief at what happened.
And was at the time you spoke to your ex-husband, was he working?
Yes, he's work.
Okay. Did he give any advice to you about any legal options or whether you should or shouldn't report it or anything along those lines?
Not that I recall.
And you said you also spoke to your cousin. When did you speak to her?
Around the same time frame that I reached out to, within the week.
And what did you tell her?
I told her the events of what the governor did. She was a lot more colorful in her emotions, but mainly coming from a space of love, making sure that I was okay, and just, you know, again, just completely appalled at his actions towards me.
You said her response was a little more colorful. Do you recall what she said?
She called him a creep. You know, for beginners, but you know, just again, appalling behavior and the complete and utter arrogance to violate someone who's just there to do her job. I think she also said narcissist, but that's what comes to mind.
And at the time, was your cousin working someplace?
She was, I believe that she was working at, she is, so I believe at that time she was working.
Is there anyone else you told in that time period other than the people you've gone through with us?
Not that I recall.
After that event, have you been at any other events where you've interacted with the governor?
No, I have not.
Did the governor at any point, either directly or through his staff, reach out to you after the event?
No.
Did the governor or his office send you any pictures from the event?
Not that I recall.
Since the allegations started to become public about the governor allegedly engaging in sexually harassing behavior, has anyone from the governor's office reached out to you?
No.
Did you tell people about strike that. When did you first start talking about the incident more recently?
It was March 4th of this year. I was having coffee and I was reading the headlines and news of the day. And I came across an article that was published with regard to a press conference that he held on March 3rd, so the day before. And I was reading the details of the press conference where he says, I never touched anyone inappropriately. And that is really what's triggered this. I reached out to my boss and I said, I need to tell you that I'm not okay with this. And so that's when the discussion started, was on March 4th when March 4th or 3rd, when I reached out to my boss and I said, I'm not okay with this. This is what I've read and this is a complete fabrication. He's lying because he touched me. He touched me inappropriately.
And when you say your boss, that's...
Yes.
And what did she say in response?
She said, let's take this to ethics.
And when you say take it to ethics, that's with...
Yes.
And so did you speak to someone, ethics committee or office, or?
I did.
And what other conversations have you had with anyone between speaking to and today about what happened back in May of 2017?
No one other than my attorney, Marianne Wang, and our ethics people. So it's limited to those folks.
And did you speak to anyone within the ethics department about either you or they reporting this to the governor's office?
No.
Did ethics department say whether they were going to take any action in response to you raising this concern with them?
No, other than support of me and what I needed to do to make sure that I was safe and I was represented, and that my needs were met in terms of me coming forward. So just complete and tireless support of me. So I would say that it's the best way to characterize it is just support of my needs.
And
making sure that I was okay.
Did you speak to any of your coworkers more recently who were at the event that day?
No.
Did you tell any family or friends that you were now going to speak out in some fashion about this?
I believe it was just only my sister. I had asked if she would speak on my behalf, but it was only limited to.
And did your sister give you any advice when you told her that you were going to do something about what happened?
No, she did not. She just said, I love you. And that's mainly it. Just, support of me, but no advice.
And you said you read about the governor's press conference. Have you read about some of the other women who have come forward in their allegations?
I have.
Do you know any of the women who have spoken out publicly about what happened to them with the governor?
No, I do not.
Has anyone, even if they're not somebody who's come forward publicly, ever told you that they had any, after there was press and people were talking about things, has anyone else told you that they had an experience with the governor that made them uncomfortable?
No.
June, do you have questions?
Yeah, can I just, following up on the actual incident where he ran his fingers across your t-shirt. You said that the people immediately to your left and right were members of the media?
Yes.
Okay. But you don't remember specifically who they were?
I do not.
Do you remember there being anyone behind the governor or anyone else who would have been sort of within sight lines of you and the governor?
I don't recall anyone behind him.
Okay. And so was he walking alone when he was going down the line of people?
He was.
And are the colleagues that you spoke to right after, I think it was, are they still there?
Yes, they are.
That's all I have. Thanks. And
Just one question. When he was going down the line, this receiving line, was the receiving line sort of facing the river?
It was perpendicular.
Okay. And was the canopy and was that behind you or in front of you?
It was up towards the salmon fish hatchery facility. So it was, I don't know how many feet away it was, but it was up towards sort of a flat plateau near the fish hatchery. And
the stage, was the stage up by the canopy?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we have any more questions unless June wants to jump in with something, or Ezra. Is there anything you'd like to put on the record before we wrap up?
And may I interrupt and just ask if we could have a brief break so that I can talk to her to see whether she wants to say something?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Like just 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Going off the record now at 10:48 a.m. We're now going back on the record at approximately 10:58 a.m. Go ahead, counsel.
Ms. Limmiatis, I understand there's something that you'd like to correct from what you said earlier.
Yes, thank you. I misstated with regard to folks that I spoke with over the last several months. And so you had asked me if I spoke with anyone, and the answer is yes. So I spoke with my colleagues who were present at the event to notify them that I was considering coming forward, and I had gotten an attorney. So I misunderstood the question. So I just wanted to share with you that I did speak with those colleagues and my family, letting them know that I was considering coming forward, and I had gotten an attorney.
And when you spoke to each of your colleagues, why don't you go through them one by one and let us know what you said to them and what they said to you about that?
Sure. Do you want me to go through them by name or just in general?
By name, yeah, go one by one, unless you spoke to them as a group, what you said to each of them and what they said in response.
Sure. So I contacted and I let him know that I had considered coming forward, and that the nature of that press conference, I'll call it the quote that I read as a result of that press conference in the many articles was disturbing to me, and that I was considering coming forward because he had touched me, and I said, you know, he had touched my T-shirt, and I said I'm going to come forward because he's not being truthful. So I said I'm considering coming forward and getting an attorney, and that's
What,
yes.
what if anything did he say?
He had said, "You have my support. I believe he said, I'm proud of you. This is not easy." And he just showed support.
Anything else you recall in the conversation between you?
I do not.
And did you also reach out to?
I did. I reached out to the same thing, that I had read this news article, and that I was disheartened to see that he was not owning his actions with these other women, and that I personally, I said, are aware I personally was touched inappropriately, and what he said was not true. And I said, I'm just letting you know that I'm considering getting an attorney and moving forward on this.
And what, if anything, did he say in response?
Again, he showed nothing but support, and he said, you know, I've been thinking about you, and I was basically wondering if this is something that you were going to come forward and move forward on.
And when did you speak to?
I don't recall exactly, but it was many months ago.
But sometime after the March 4th press conference you read about?
Yes.
And did you also speak to?
I did. And I similarly shared with him that I was considering coming forward and retaining an attorney. And I said, and his response to me, again, was nothing but support. He said, you know, I just was talking recently with my own wife about it. And he said, I shared with her that I was wondering if you were going to come forward. And so he showed, you know, empathy and support.
Is there anyone else between March 4th and today that you spoke to about coming forward or thinking about coming forward?
My cousin, my sister mentioned earlier, and I said, this is something that I'm considering doing. And again, their response was support and love.
And I understand that you wanted to take us up on our offer to make a statement.
Yes, thank you. Bear with me while I read this. You tell me when you're ready.
All set. Oh, I'm set. As the court reporter said, just don't go too, sometimes when people read things, they tend to go quickly. So try to go slowly.
Okay. Nothing would prepare me for May 2017, a day that for me was the culmination of a lot of hard work with a team at. The day started with excitement and joy, but quickly turned into something ugly because of the actions of the governor. I was there as a professional to do my work. The governor turned a sincere gesture of simply extending my hand as an expression of gratitude for the state's partnership into a moment of profound shame and humiliation. I don't pretend to know precisely what went through the governor's mind on that day, but I know that his actions were not ambiguous. He placed and pressed, then moved his finger across my breasts in a way that was clearly meant to show me his power and his ability to control my body and my dignity. And I do know what I felt. I felt he violated me. The governor made me feel dirty and cheap. He did not respect me as a professional and a contributor to the project. Any adult man would have known that doing this was inappropriate and demeaning. His behavior, just a split second later, his leaning in and whispering that he was going to make up an excuse about a spider, shows me that he knew immediately that he had done something wrong and that he had to create a cover story. I want to tell the governor that this is not about cancel culture. This is about consequences. My coming forward is a direct result of the governor's March 3rd press conference, in which he said, "I never touched anyone inappropriately." He is lying again. He touched me inappropriately. I am compelled to come forward to tell the truth. I do not know how to report what he did to me. I didn't know how to report what he did to me at the time and was burdened by shame. But not coming forward now would make me complicit in his lie, and I won't do it. I am a cancer survivor. I know an oppressive and destructive force when I see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Limmiatis. We're done. There might be some follow-up that we need to, if there's any developments where we need any additional information from you, we'll reach out to your counsel, but I want to thank you very much for spending time with us today and for reaching out, having your attorneys reach out to us.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
we can go off the record.
Thank you very
Going
much.
off the record now at 11:06 a.m.